They looked me dead in the eye and said this house should belong to Emma. I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was so unbelievable, so insulting it almost didn't feel real. I bought this home with every hour I'd ever worked, every night I stayed late while Emma coasted, and still they wanted it, demanded it. When I said no, they didn't back down. They got sneaky, tried to take it behind my back, filed paperwork, faked documents, tried to erase me from my own life, and when I found out what they'd done, I didn't cry. I got a lawyer. I wish this were fiction. I wish this were just a wild Reddit story, but it's not. It's real, and it's mine. I grew up knowing where I stood in the family's second place. Always, my older sister Emma was the golden child, the favored one, the name whispered like a prayer over dinner tables and plans me. I was the other daughter, the afterthought. They never said it outright, but they didn't have to. It was in the way. Emma got the biggest slice of everything. Rooms, gifts, attention, and I was expected to smile through it by high school. It was common knowledge. My friend Rick used to joke, "They act like Emma's the heir to the throne, and you're just the mail carrier's kid." And truth be told, he wasn't wrong. The pattern didn't change as we got older, it just got more expensive. They paid for Emma's wedding, her house, and even greased the wheels for her career. Me, built from scratch, every dollar earned, every step climbed alone. I used to think maybe one day they'd see me. Turns out they did, just not in the way I hoped. The house wasn't just a house, it was my triumph, 3 bedrooms and a dream. Finally realized after 15 years of late nights, scrappy promotions, and living like every dollar counted. I refinished the floors myself, picked out every cabinet, hinge, and paint color, and turned the garage into a gym. When I stepped inside, it didn't just feel like a home, it felt like I'd finally outrun the shadow of Emma. Then came the dinner. My parents invited themselves over one Sunday evening, armed with casseroles and fake smiles. Dad walked through the rooms like he was inspecting a rental property, tapping on walls and sniffing at imperfections. Mom kept saying how spacious the house felt for one person. After dessert, they sat me down like I was a child caught cheating. My father cleared his throat, eyes serious. "We've been thinking about your house situation," he said. "We think it would make more sense for Emma to take over the property." I thought I misheard. "Come again," Mom jumped in. "Sweetheart, it's not personal. Emma has children, you're single. This is about family unity. We just want to manage the family assets responsibly." I blinked. "This is my house. I bought it with my money." Dad leaned forward like he used to when I was 10, and they were scolding me for talking back. "Emma would let you stay until you find somewhere else," he added, like that was some grand act of mercy. Then Emma walked in from the kitchen, uninvited, unbothered. "Don't take it personally, sis," she said with a smirk. "You don't need all this space. It just makes more sense for my family." That's when I stood up. "This isn't a discussion. This is my home, and I'm not signing anything over to anyone." The room fell into an icy silence. My parents exchanged that look, the one they always gave when I strayed from the script they wrote for my life. Without another word, they stood up, gathered their things, and left like I'd disappointed them by not letting them steal what I worked for. That night I didn't cry, I didn't beg. I locked the door behind them and stood in the silence of my house, hearing the truth echo off the walls. They never saw it as mine to begin with. The night after that dinner, I wandered the rooms of my house like a ghost, unsure of its own home. The air felt tighter, heavier, like it wasn't mine anymore. It was as if their words, their gall, their nerve had seeped into the walls and settled there like a mildew I couldn't scrub away. I had spent years clawing my way towards something permanent, something stable. But there I stood in the house I bought, with the weight of every late night, every sacrifice, and my family thought it made more sense for it to belong to someone else. I called Rick the next morning, my oldest friend, and the only witness to my family's lifelong performance. "They've lost their minds," I said. "Emma, my parents, they think I should hand over my house like it's a bag of sugar." Rick didn't laugh, he just let out a long sigh that carried decades of knowing. "They think you'll fold," he said. "You always do, right before the curtain falls." He was right. I had played my part in their charade for years. Beautiful daughter, silent sibling. Now they were banking on the same ending. But this time, I had grown tired of being the punchline. The guilt campaign began fast. My mother's texts were a blend of saccharine love and veiled threats. "Emma's kids deserve room to grow. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone." "Why are you being so selfish?" Dad left voicemails about tradition, responsibility, and legacy. Aunt Susan, who hadn't spoken to me since the Obama administration, suddenly appeared like a bad penny to lecture me about family duty. And then came Emma and Karen, storm clouds and yoga pants. They dropped by uninvited, breezing through my door, as if it already belonged to them. This wall should come down, Karen mused, tapping the living room drywall like she was chewing an avocado at the grocery store. We'd go open concept, I reminded them gently at first, then firmly, that this house wasn't theirs. They nodded like I was a child mispronouncing big words. We understand you're attached to it, Karen said, in a voice that made my skin itch. Change is hard. Their children, 8 and 10, roamed the house like unsupervised raccoons, leaving muddy footprints across my freshly refinished floors, yanking open drawers, smearing fingerprints on glass. Kids will be kids, Emma said when I pointed out the chaos. She may as well have shrugged. It wasn't long before I came home one afternoon and found them inside. They'd used the spare key I'd hidden under a rock for emergencies. My mistake. Their children were drawing on the dining room walls with markers. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I simply said, "Get out now." Erin huffed, "They're just expressing themselves." I changed the locks that night. Rick helped. "You need to start a paper trail," he said. "Document everything." So I did. Cameras went up. Every corner of the house was covered. I started recording texts, saving voicemails, and then came the Dodge Dart incident. That car, she was my pride. A 1969 metallic green Dodge Dart Swinger with a 340 V8 engine. I'd restored her with my own 2 hands. Every bolt, every stitch in the upholstery. She was more than metal. She was memory, muscle, and sweat. And one morning I caught Emma's son, Tyler, dragging a rock along her side like he was drawing a map to hell. I bolted outside. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. He didn't even flinch. "It's just an old car." I snatched the rock and shoved him lightly, but enough that he hit the ground and wailed like he'd been shot. Emma and Karen came running along with my parents as if summoned by drama. "He's a child," Karen screamed. "He's a vandal," I said, pointing to the fresh gouge down the Dart's side. My father placed a hand on my shoulder. "You need to calm down." I shook it off. "I'm done calming down." Not one apology, not one offer to pay for repairs. Instead, they gathered like a jury, declaring me emotionally unstable, selfish, and dramatic. Aunt Susan from the porch said, "This is why you can't be trusted with responsibility." The next day I called Emma. $3,500. I said, "That's what the damage will cost." "You're kidding." She laughed. "It's a scratch. This isn't a negotiation. Either you pay or I file a report." She called my bluff, so I filed police report, insurance claim. All of it. I even showed the officer the video. "Family's complicated," he said, "but damage is damage." What they didn't know, and what I was just beginning to realize, was that this wasn't about a house or a car. It was about history, years of it, a lifetime of being invisible, unless they needed something. And now that I had something worth needing, they'd do whatever it took to take it. And I was done letting them. You'd think that when your flesh and blood commits fraud in your name, they'd at least be clever about it or discreet. But what my family lacked in morals, they made up for in arrogance and stunning incompetence. It started with a phone call from my bank. "Hi, Miss Mitchell, this is Laura from the mortgage department," the woman said, all pleasant and professional. "We're just verifying details for a recent refinance application involving your property." I nearly dropped my mug. I didn't apply for anything. It was submitted under the names Robert and Susan Harrison, my parents. "That's not possible," I said slowly. "They don't own my home. I do." Solely. Another pause. "That's what flagged the application. The documents listed your house as secondary collateral under a family trust, but the verification process showed inconsistency." I asked to see what they had submitted, but she couldn't share much, just enough to confirm something horrifying. They'd created a trust, backdated it 3 years, and tacked my house right onto the asset list. A forged signature, notarized lie. I hung up, heart racing, and called Rick, my best friend, my anchor in the storm. He came over in 20 minutes flat, holding a folder stuffed with documents his cousin had pulled from the county recorder's office. "Lily," he said, his voice low, "it's worse than we thought. The so-called family legacy that my parents kept lecturing me about, it was crumbling. Their house re-mortgaged 3 times over the last decade. Each loan was timed suspiciously with one of Emma's business ventures. The construction firm that quietly dissolved the real estate group is buried under a lawsuit. The sports bar that tanked after 8 months. They'd been pouring everything, every dime, every signature, every ounce of borrowed credibility into trying to prop her up. And now Rick continued. They're 6 months behind on payments. Foreclosures are already in motion." It all clicked. The desperation, the charm offensive, the emotional blackmail. They weren't chasing some noble family dream. They were drowning and reaching for me as a life raft. But that wasn't even the worst of it. "Look at this," Rick said, pointing to a copy of the fraudulent trust. There it was, my name scribbled in unfamiliar handwriting. My house listed like it was a family heirloom instead of something I'd bled for the kicker. Karen's signature, clear as day, was listed. As a witness, she hadn't just stood by, she'd helped them do it. I felt like I'd swallowed glass. Did they think I'd never find out that banks didn't verify deeds, that I wouldn't notice if my home, the thing I built with my own 2 hands, was being leveraged as collateral for their debt-riddled empire of lies? I sat there, the document spread out like a crime scene, and felt the full weight of it settle over me. This wasn't just betrayal, this was theft from the people who'd raised me. I could have screamed, I could have cried, but I didn't. Instead, I gathered everything into a neat, organized binder. The trust, the fake signatures, the bank communications, screenshots of threatening texts, vandalism reports, and photos of Emma's kids destroying my lawn evidence. 2 days later, I invited my family over, not for dinner, for truth. We met on neutral ground, my front porch. I didn't let them inside. Emma arrived first, smug and tight-lipped. My parents followed, looking like they'd rehearsed their victim faces in the mirror. "I'm done being quiet," I said, placing the binder on the porch table. "Open it." They hesitated. My father looked annoyed. Emma rolled her eyes, but my mother's hands trembled as she flipped the cover. Page after page, the lies stared back at them. "This is ridiculous," Emma scoffed. "It's not stealing when it's family." I snapped. "It is when you forge documents. It is when you attempt to defraud a bank using a property that doesn't belong to you." My mom's voice cracked. "We were just trying to protect the family." "No," I said, "you were trying to protect Emma from the consequences of her failure, and you were willing to drag me down with you." Rick stood behind me, silent, solid. My neighbor across the street peeked through her blinds, and still my parents dared to look offended. My father finally spoke. "So what, you're going to press charges against your own family?" I met his gaze. "If you force my hand, yes. What you did is illegal. The bank already flagged it. There's a fraud report filed, and I have every piece of proof I need." Emma scoffed again. "This will ruin everything." "No," I said quietly. "You ruined everything. I'm just drawing the line." The air felt thick, like a storm was about to break, but for once I wasn't the one cowering beneath it. "I want written confirmation from all of you today, a signed statement that you retract any claim to my home and property, that you acknowledge I am the sole owner, and I want it notarized. If I don't have it by the end of the day tomorrow, I'll go to the authorities." They didn't argue. They knew the game was up. My mother nodded stiffly. "Fine." As they turned to leave, Emma looked back. "You'll regret this." "No," I said, voice steady. "I regret not standing up for myself sooner." When they were gone, I sank into the porch chair, breathless, but alive. For the first time in my life, I'd made them see me not as a resource, not as the backup plan, but as a person with boundaries. And they hated it, which meant, finally, I was doing something right. Armed with a binder thick as betrayal itself, I walked into my lawyer's office, carrying years of being overlooked, overstepped, and nearly overrun. My attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Dana, flipped through my carefully labeled evidence, photos, emails, notarized frauds, surveillance, screenshots, and leaned back with the kind of sigh that carries both certainty and disappointment. "They messed with the wrong person," she said. "We have enough here for criminal charges, attempted loan fraud, identity theft, and document forgery. Or we can go civil. Restraining orders, damages, lawsuits, your call." I stared at the ceiling for a beat, imagining what jail would do to my parents. It wasn't mercy. I felt just a desire for finality, not flames. "Prepare both," I said, "but hold off on filing. I want to give them one last out." When Emma showed up again, unannounced, entitled as ever, I met her at the door. "Trespassing again." Emma bold. "Cameras are rolling." She tried to barge in. I blocked her with one sentence: "Everything goes through my lawyer now." The next day, Dana sent cease and desist letters to every player in their little drama club. No more pretending this was just family business. Within hours, my mother was sobbing over voicemail. My father emailed some macho nonsense about betrayal. Emma started spinning lies about me being mentally unstable, but no one, not one, denied the fraud. Then came the group text family meeting. Sunday attendance mandatory. I brought my binder. Rick waited in his car just in case. They were all their parents, Emma, Karen, Aunt Susan, even their kids sitting wide-eyed like they were at some church potluck. My dad gave a speech about unity. My mom cried about tradition. When they finished, I placed the binder on the table. "I know everything I said about the mortgages, the loan fraud, and the foreclosure proceedings. The bank called me. They're curious why my property was listed as collateral. So am I." Silence fell like judgment. Emma turned pale. My mom froze mid-sob. My dad muttered about misunderstandings. 3 mortgages to fund Emma's failures isn't a misunderstanding. Forging my name isn't a misunderstanding, it's a felony. Emma stood, finger raised. You ungrateful, sit down, I said. I'm not finished. I listed every incident, every infraction, vandalism, trespassing, harassment. My legal folder was thicker than any family album we ever kept. Just as I neared the end, the doorbell rang. Uncle Robert walked in. He hadn't been part of the family business in years. Sorry I'm late, he said, and then turned to Emma. I got your message, asking for more money. Thought we should all hear this. Emma flushed. Uncle Robert, now is not. Oh, I think it is. He said you've borrowed $85,000 from me over 4 years, claimed it was for business, never repaid a dime. Now I find out you tried to use Lily's house without her knowledge. I'm done. The room erupted. My dad tried to shush him. My mother tried to deflect, but Uncle Robert raised his voice too. She's been bleeding. This family dry eye kept quiet because your father begged me to, but I'm done. Lily, you should have known sooner. I'm sorry. Emma looked ready to explode. He's exaggerating. I just had some cash flow issues for a decade, he snapped. I've seen your bank records. You didn't run businesses, you ran scams. I turned to my parents. Here are your options. Option 1, I file formal charges. The bank freezes your accounts. Criminal proceedings begin. Emma goes down. So does Dad. Option 2, you all disappear from my life. No calls, no texts, no birthday guilt trips. My house is mine, my life is mine, and you stay away, my mother whispered. You can't just cut us off. We're your family. Watch me. I replied. I stood. Emma stepped in front of me. You're just jealous. I laughed. Of what? Your foreclosure notices, your failed businesses, your lies. Move. My father called out. Daughter, please. We can work this out. I turned to him. You had years. You chose. Emma. I choose myself. Outside, Uncle Robert caught up with me. I'm filing my own suit against her. I've got every canceled check. Should have done it sooner. Why didn't you? Family loyalty, he said bitterly. Stupidest reason to let someone rob you. Blind. The next morning my mom texted, we choose option 2. I didn't answer. Instead, I called Dana. They agreed to back off. She said, doesn't matter, I said. They've broken promises before. File everything. And so we did. We filed documentation of attempted fraud with the bank. We launched a civil suit for damages to my car. We submitted the paperwork for a restraining order. The system moved slowly, but it moved. 4 months later, a plain envelope arrived inside a court judgment for $3. $5,000 in car damage, $8,000 in legal fees. Emma and Karen were ordered to pay. Uncle Robert won his suit to $85,000 plus interest. Emma had tried to claim it was a gift. It wasn't. The judge saw right through her. She thought the family name would save her. It didn't. Word spread. Emma's newest business folded. Karen was quietly let go from her job. My parents lost their home. The foreclosure showed up on a real estate site with no ceremony. Their country club days were over. Their borrowed cars were replaced with 10-year-old sedans. The restraining order was finally granted. 500 feet of legal peace. 6 months later. I ran into my mother at the grocery store. She looked worn out, clothes, cheap makeup, faded. Daughter, we need help, she called across the aisle. We're family. No, I said, we're not. We have nowhere to go. After what you did, after choosing Emma over and over, after trying to steal the one thing I built myself, you expect me to help fear everything we did for you. I laughed. You gave me nothing but grief. Your heartless goodbye, Mom. 9 months after it all began, Emma showed up at my job. Security called. She was in the lobby. She looked nothing like the woman I once knew. Broken, hollow. 5 minutes, she pleaded. You're violating a restraining order. I said, want to add another charge. I'm trying to make this right. We're sisters. We're DNA matches. That's it. They'll be on the street. We need help. You didn't care about family when your kid was smashing my mailbox, or when you forged my signature, or when you called me unstable. I made mistakes. Now you're living the consequences. So this is revenge. No, I said, this is protection. Security escorted her out. She shouted, you'll regret this. Family's all you have in the end. Maybe that's true for some folks, but not me. The months that followed were calm. I got promoted, finished my smart home upgrade, took road trips in my Dodge. Rick and Uncle Robert came. Sometimes we laughed more, worried less, because here's the truth. Family isn't who shares your last name, it's who shows you respect. The people who tried to take everything from me weren't family. They were thieves, and I finally stopped leaving the doors unlocked. My house, my peace, my life, earned it all, every damned piece. And if you've ever had to draw a hard line with the people who were supposed to love you most, just know you're not alone. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing alone for a while. But in that quiet, in that peace, you'll find your strength, and once you do, no one can take it from you. If this story struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Whether it's your own experience, a word of encouragement, or just a reaction, your voice matters here. And if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. We share true stories about real people who dared to choose truth, healing, and self-respect no matter the cost. Hit that like button if you believe boundaries are an act of love, not defiance. Thank you for watching, and remember, family isn't who shares your blood, it's who honors your worth. Take care, we'll see you in the next story.